Marcus, and welcome to After Cafe, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. He is a thought leader, digital strategies, and of course, an author too, no other than Mr. Chris Food. Welcome, Mr. Chris. And can you please introduce more about yourself that I missed?
Yeah. Hi, welcome. Thank you. Appreciate being here. I'm Chris Hood. I'm an AI strategist as well as a keynote speaker and an author. So I spend a lot of time with organizations trying to figure out what to do with all this AI stuff. And I've been in AI myself for over 25 years now. And so it's an exciting time and really happy to talk more about it.
Yes, and thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about human first AI, picking the right problems. Tell us, let's start with the core idea human first AI. How do you define this, and how is fundamentally different from the way many companies are currently approaching AI?
Yeah, there's a lot of definitions in terms of what human plus AI really means. You might also hear it as human in the loop or some sort of human augmentation for AI. And really, what we're trying to express is that you have to have somebody, a real person, who is interacting with AI to ensure that you get what you really are trying to get out of it. And so, for example, we know that AI hallucinates, especially the generative AI models like ChatGTP. And so you would have naturally a human who can go through and edit and spot check, make sure that it's all accurate and that there's no errors in it. And so the organizations that are not doing this, that they are fully automated or are not looking at the output or do not have a human engaged with that process are running into problems. If something like, let's just say that it outputs some sort of promotion 50% off, and then they are being held liable for offering that 50% off, whether or not they intended to do it or not. And so it's always best practice to have the AI be checked by a human. Also, when we think about just customer relationships, we see that customers want to actually communicate with a human being. Anytime you've had a problem and you've dialed into some sort of support service, you get a chat bot, you get the runaround, and we are seeing an increased amount of people who just want to talk to somebody to get their problem solved. And so that whole part of the human being in that process is not just to benefit your business, but it's also to benefit the consumer and ensure that they are satisfied in that process.
Why is starting with a human problem a more effective strategy than starting with the exciting new AI technology?
Yeah, sure. Well, look, every single business is in existence because they are solving some sort of problem. That's the foundation of a business. And so if you think about that, your goal is to come up with some sort of product or service that ultimately is solving a problem and creating a value proposition for a consumer. And companies who do not look at that and just jump to, we'll say, some shiny new object like artificial intelligence, then they're solving the wrong problem, right? So you ultimately still need to think about what the customer wants, what they need, how are you going to solve that? And AI is not necessarily always the right solution. In fact, in a lot of cases, you can solve the consumer problem with other types of technologies, existing or cheaper technologies that are not artificial intelligence. There's actually very few cases out there right now where AI is the best technology to use. But because it is the newest and the fanciest and the shiny new object, everybody is trying to figure out how to use AI first. And they're forgetting about why they're there in the first place, which is to solve that baseline problem that the consumer has. Now, in that process, if you think, okay, here's our problem, here's what we're trying to solve, and you realize that AI can do it better than other technologies, then absolutely go and explore it, go find a way to implement it. But you're still starting with the problem that the consumer has, and that should never change.
What are the most common consequences when companies get these backwards and try to force an AI solution to find a problem?
Well, when they do that and they're distracting themselves from the customer themselves, they're often finding that it doesn't work, right? So it would be like if I said to you, "Hey, let's make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich," and then I go out and I give you a a sprinkler. Well, a sprinkler is not going to help you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich, right? So if that's your problem, then I need other tools. I need a knife, right? I need maybe a paper plate to put my bread on, right? So you've got to stay within the context of what the problem is, and a lot of times people are going off and trying to build these new products or services without the direct correlation back to the problem, which then is just costing them money. And then you've got failed projects. And a lot of times those failed projects are also directly related to not really understanding AI's capabilities. So if you're trying to make that peanut butter and jelly sandwich and somebody says, well, use this AI powered knife, it's going to be wonderful for you, but the knife doesn't actually work that way and doesn't really have AI power to it, it creates a disconnect, which then creates confusion within the organization, which then leads to project failures.
Mr. Chris, on identifying the right problems, what are the hallmarks of a right problem for AI to solve? Is it about pain point or data availability or potential for human augmentation?
Yeah, it's a great question. And where I tend to lead people is on finding opportunities to look at data, insights that you would normally not think about. And so, if we were to think about something like, let's say, a customer journey map, where we are tracking how a customer navigates through your organization, what their experience is. Oftentimes, those customer journey maps are built with data that is internal to the organization. You know who's coming to your website. You know who is reading social media posts. You can track what they are doing as they're going from one stage to another stage. But where AI can come in is enhance that data, providing you with insights that is typically not within your organization. So you could start thinking about, well, I'm curious what other businesses that these customers are navigating to before they find us. I'm wondering what they're doing when they think about us. If you think about our daily lives, you go to the grocery store and you're searching for your peanut butter and jelly, and you start thinking about your bank account, which leads you to think about a missed payment on your Visa card, which makes you think about, oh, I've got, my nephew's birthday coming up, which makes you think about going to Hallmark. Like, we see those as all individual, segmented, or siloed types of experiences, each with their own journeys. But in reality, that one person who is experiencing all of those different things have trails of information that you could discover leveraging AI to provide you with richer insights, to provide you with a better experience. So it's often not about the data that you have, it's about looking at data you potentially don't have outside of your organization and then leveraging AI to enhance that data for deeper insights.
A deeper insight for sure. And how do you practically discover the the leader that was simple way to audit their organizations?
Yeah. So, from a leadership perspective, you have to, it goes back to really, you've got to start back with what is the problem. And I often suggest finding one small problem that you can solve and then finding a couple of people who can work on that small project. I have a service or sort of a philosophy called minimal viable business outcome. So any product owners are out there who understand minimal viable product, this is about a business outcome as opposed to a product. What is the one thing that we can do today that is going to completely provide us with increased value for the organization? And if you can find that one little thing, then you can start to audit it. You can look at, what's causing that problem. You can look at what you could potentially do to improve that particular problem. And then you could get a little team together and have them try to solve that problem leveraging AI. Very limited resources, very little impact to the organization. But if successful, then you can start to expand that project out to larger teams, more teams, and then find a way to really enhance it and make it successful. I'll give you a quick example here, case study, which is Experian. So Experian developed a chatbot, and it was a new type of chatbot that they were working on, but they only rolled it out to 5% of their support tickets. And they tested it. They ensured that it was working well. Then they increased it to 10%, and then they got it up to 35%. And even at 35% capacity, they increased their net promoter score by 8%. And so this gives you an example of how you can start small, have a big impact, and then figure out how you're going to scale it so that it will be optimized across the organization.
Mr. Chris, on strategy and implementation, how does a human first approach change the way you build on AI team? Do you prioritize anthropologists and ethicists as much as a data scientist?
Yeah, I think the biggest benefit of thinking about the human component of AI is within trust and ethics and how people will think about your organization. So even if we think about just the trust component, what we are finding is that consumers, when you break their trust, even one time within the organization, they are most likely going to leave you and not return. And so trust is extremely critical. So even if you have, like, say, a chatbot, or if you have data that is being displayed online, what we're seeing is even small caveats that say this is powered by AI, or this was generated by AI, or we are actually using an AI service as opposed to a real person. Like trying to pretend that this is a real person with a real output when it's not, those types of things break the trust. And so you have to think about these strategies, not just from a data and making sure that the data is accurate. And so you have a human in the loop to ensure data accuracy, but you also need to be transparent about what is actually AI and what is not AI, because that's also going to help build the trust.
Build the trust for sure. And Mr. Chris, what does the development process look like? Does it involve more prototyping or human in the top testing than traditional software development?
Well, it's interesting because I would say that when it's all said and done, there's really not much difference when we think about software development from a traditional perspective and an AI enhanced perspective. You still need to have some sort of requirements. What are you going to build? You still need to have somebody, whether it is a person asking AI to output it or a manager asking a human to output it. You need somebody who is going to be managing that development process. You still need to test to make sure that it works. You still need to troubleshoot to make sure that it works. You need to avoid bugs. You need to be concerned about security issues. You don't want all of your private data being exposed outside and to the public. So some of those things are still foundational. I think the only major difference right now is that somebody who does not have full engineering experience can participate in software development leveraging AI. And the process by which you can do all of this does tend to be a little faster. So if I go in and ask, say, Claude to write some code for me, it's going to be able to output that code pretty quick versus somebody sitting there and typing out every single line to get to this same amount of code that you need. But some of the other areas, even though you're doing it faster, you still need to do the quality assurance checks on it. You still need to do the security checks on it. You still need to make sure it works.
Mr. Chris, what is the role of empathy and user experience design in building AI that people actually trust and want to use?
Yeah, empathy is an interesting one because, empathy does not exist in AI. AI cannot be empathetic. It could pretend to be empathetic. It can masquerade empathy. It could even potentially have the illusion of real empathy, but it's not. It's all simulated and it's all fake. And one of the biggest challenges with this is that as consumers, when we are calling in, often we want to talk to a human because the situation is unique. We've got a critical issue. We don't believe that the chat bot will be able to help us. We, are struggling emotionally, and we might have real problems. A prime example of this might be I was in a car accident and I needed to call my car insurance. The last thing I want to do is talk to a chatbot. I just want to talk to a real person who can understand what I'm going through. And so when we simulate this, what we're seeing is that individuals get more frustrated when they cannot reach that real person. Because in those moments, we really need an empathetic ear. We need somebody who's going to listen and understand and even sometimes talk to us about the situation, even if it has nothing to do with why I'm calling. I could be in the car accident and I could be calling my doctor to make an appointment, and I'm talking about the car accident, and how I'm feeling, right? Those moments when, we just need a sympathetic ear, that is the human experience. No AI can help you in that moment. And we have to keep those things in mind when we're developing and designing these systems, and especially when we're thinking about new types of systems to put within the marketplace.
In a world skeptical of AI, how does leading with a human problem build trust more effectively than leading with a powerful model?
Well, I mean, right now, a lot of people just don't trust AI. So, we could probably run some sort of poll or experiment and say, you've got a human on one side and AI on the other side. Who are you going to trust more? And I think it becomes even more interesting if you start to segment that out with specific types of information. For example, if I said a math problem, would you trust the AI more or the human more or a calculator more? I think most people are going to say calculator because most generative AI models can't do math. If I asked a question like, some sort of historical reference, somebody might say AI, they trust more because AI is going to have the capacity of understanding larger amounts of data and can probably present factual information faster than the human. But if I was in a different situation, let's say that I was needing surgery of some sort, and you had the option, do you want to use AI for this surgery or do you want to use a human doctor? I think a lot of people would pick the human doctor. And so there are interesting scenarios which will dictate what we want to do and how we want to engage with technology versus real people. And right now, yeah, there's a lot of people out there that simply don't trust the AI and will choose to engage with some form of technology or some other person to get the answer they need.
What is the biggest internal resistance you face when advocating for a human first approach, especially from executives who are dazzled by the technology itself?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest areas here is fear. You know, I think people are advocating for humans to be a participant with AI so that they can keep their jobs. I think leaders are looking at that as, well, if AI can help us reduce our headcount, save money, make more money, then let's start removing people from these roles. We don't need the humans to participate. And really, that's what it boils down to. There's a lot of fear and anxiety about losing work, being replaced, not being able to, support the company initiatives solely with humans plus AI. So there are a lot of companies and enterprises are definitely opting right now to just use AI. And also, I think part of this is there's a misunderstanding of the capabilities of AI. And so when you think that AI will be correct all of the time, and then you realize that AI cannot be correct all of the time, that misalignment of capabilities generates a culture within the organization that, again, drives a lot of fear.
How do you avoid solutioneering jumping to an AI solution before you fully understood the human need?
It's very hard for people because, again, they're entering this as, well, everybody is using AI. AI is the newest thing. We must use AI. Let's go find a way to use AI. That's how people are thinking right now. As opposed to, as we talked about earlier, let's figure out what the problem is. Let's figure out what technology we could use to solve that problem. And then maybe we need AI to help us in that process. And so you will always need to start with the customer first. I've often suggested that even the technology is last because you can think about your organization, you can think about the culture, you can think about how all of the operations within your organization. And so if you're starting with the customer and then you're thinking about operational and culture and teams and the people and the human component, and then after all of that, you start thinking about the technology, even after that, you could start to say, well, now maybe we think about AI somewhere in that process. So it's hard for people, especially when everyone's talking about AI and everywhere you look, it's AI. And you start to think that we are going to become irrelevant if we don't use AI. I hate to say it, but the only companies that become irrelevant are the ones that stop supporting and serving their customers.
Mr. Chris, what new skills will be most valuable for workers in an era where AI is designed to handle tasks so humans can focus on higher value, uniquely human skills?
Yeah, you're going to have to be part interpreter. You're going to have to understand the data. You're going to have to understand how that data is inside of the system, how you communicate with the system, what the output of the system means. And there's a lot of interpretation there, right? I mean, you could put a prompt into 4 different AI systems and get 4 different outputs. And understanding the nuances of those outputs and why those systems generated that output is critical. I think a lot of people look at it and just say, well, this must be correct. This is good. And again, that's just not the case. So, skills in terms of understanding how to ask for certain types of information based on the type of output you want, being able to adjust those prompts and understand how those adjustments are going to tweak the generated output, being able to interpret those outputs. Those are all new skills that we need to have as we're advancing in AI.
Mr. Chris, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in 5th season, abstract poetry in 2nd season, and my book 101 review in 5th season too. Comedy 101 in 2nd season, and my food 101 in 5th season as well. Geography 101 in 4th season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and Mental Health 101, Love Letters in 3rd season, and Movie 101 review and Music 101 in 4th season, and Science 101 and Section 101 in its first season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcast. So, Mr. Chris, finally, if you could leave our audience or people watching right now with one principle to guide their AI strategy, what would it be?
We've covered it, but I've often said customer first, technology last, AI maybe. And I actually
Maybe.
have a framework for maybe that I have published on my website. So you can feel free to go and find the maybe framework for how to implement AI within your organization, or you can just reach out to me and I'm happy to help.
Yes, indeed. And thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. Hoping for more and more advocacy like this to come. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your business, or whatever projects that you're doing right now?
Yeah, I've got a lot going on. So if you're an event that is looking for a keynote speaker and you want somebody to come and talk about AI within your industry or for your company, reach out. I've got AI workshops that I can come and spend a couple of hours with your team. I've got a new book that I'm writing that is going to be released early in 2026 and soon to be released. I've got AI courses. So you'll be able to come onto my website and find me and read those courses. All of that is at chrishood.com, CHRISHOOD.com, right on your screen. Come find me, reach out, happy to help.
Yes, people, let's support Mr. Chris Hood because if you support him, for sure, more and more empowering legacy to come. So, Mr. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
More to come, people. See you soon.